Hello, my name is Dale Adams of Planning Ahead of Time, and on this week's Pat Chat, I'm speaking with Jodie. Jodie and I met at a speaker boot camp with Sandra Garlick and realised that we were aligned in our desire to help people at end of life. Jodie, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Yes. Hi, Dale. Thanks for having me on your podcast today. My name's Jodie Brookes. I'm a registered nurse and have been since my early 20s, so over 20 years now, probably pushing 25 years. And I've had a range of experience in my background, including managing nursing homes, dementia facilities, and 13 years in palliative care in the community. And also I've done a lot of expert witness work. So all of my professional experience is now rolled up into my business, Brookes Care Solutions.
And what does Brookes Care Solutions do?
Okay, so we've got three main services. The first service is clinical mental capacity assessments. It's a mouthful. It's always good to say that. Mental capacity assessments, and that's mainly working alongside private client solicitors who are perhaps making lasting power of attorneys or wills for their clients, where there's some question about that client's capacity to understand the decision that they're making. They need an independent person who's been trained in the Mental Capacity Act and assessing capacity to come in and support that person to make that decision and really gauge what their understanding is about what they're doing. So that is the service that I'm really trying to grow at the moment. I think it's going to be a growth area and there's a lot of need for really good quality assessments. So that's the one service. The second service is helping people to find the right care. So that's older people, because that's generally my experience. And I can do that anywhere in England, really. I follow the same process. It's like a research package for people who are paying privately for their own care, but just don't know where to start to look for it or don't have the time. Often there's kind of two or three siblings dotted around the country, and mum or dad needs to either get care at home or go into a care or nursing home. And they've all got busy jobs and busy lives, and they don't know where to start. And in those instances, they can come to me. I will assess what the person needs and then go off and find them some options basically and do all the research for them. So that's the second service. And the third service, which I've been doing for over 13 years now, is care expert witness work. So that's again working alongside solicitors, but that tends to be personal injury solicitors, things like industrial injuries, so asbestos cancers, unfortunately, things like that, or delayed diagnosis of cancer. So when you get somebody, that's perhaps been to the doctors many, many times with a lump and told they were fine, and then unfortunately by the time they discovered that actually it was cancer and the outcome is likely to be life limiting, then there's a litigation process involved in that, and they require a care expert to come in and say how much care that person is likely to need towards the end of their life and what that's likely to cost, what equipment they might need. And then essentially I write a report for the courts, and that's the duty of an expert witness. So I've been doing that for quite a long time, which has really helped me in terms of writing court compliant reports in my mental capacity work. So it all kind of meshes quite nicely together. I don't know anyone that's got such an odd combination of sort of skills and services, but there we go. It's really enjoyable, and I really having that variety of work is quite a nice thing, because no 2 days are ever the same.
Well, yeah, it does seem really quite diverse, and yet, as you say, they completely interlink with each other.
Yeah.
And everything that you've done, I can understand how that has now allowed you to form these three real areas where you're bringing your expertise into it. Now, when you obviously talked about your first one, which is the mental capacity testing,
Mm.
can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because who would need that and why would they need that?
Yeah. When you say you're going to assess somebody's capacity, that should not be a single sentence on its own. Capacity to what?
Yes.
Capacity to decide what? That it doesn't stop there. Someone doesn't have blanket capacity or not. They maybe have capacity to decide which carer they want to come and get them up in the morning, what they want to have for lunch, and where they want to live. But they might not have the mental capacity to make a will.
I've
Because
worked with a lady where we've had to change and remove her from the power of attorney because she didn't have the ability or capacity to do that role. to be the attorney. And when it came to a lot of administrative work, she didn't have the capacity to do it because she'd never had to do it through her lifetime.
Yeah.
Her husband had already always taken that role. And yet, from her own, the personal care, the running of the home, the running of the house, etc., she had full capacity and ability. So as you say, and that's really, I suppose, why I wanted to just to bring a little bit of clarity around it so that people don't think they can just contact you to say, we want it proven that she doesn't have capacity.
I only take instructions for mental capacity assessments from people that have got a professional involved. So usually my referrals come via solicitors or will writers, because what I've really seen is the real need for expert advice when you are making these legal documents. Because, just for example, you've got your lasting power of attorney for property and financial affairs, and there's a box on there that says this LPA can be used at any time, or there's the box below it, only when I've been deemed to not have mental capacity. And the layperson reading that would think, well, I only want this to be used when I can't do it myself. So they'll tick that box that says this LPA can only be used when I lack the mental capacity. But what they don't realise then is that that potentially could throw a spanner in the works later down the line. If they break their leg and are in hospital and they need that LPA to be used to pay a bill, whoever they give that to may not be able to use that LPA because they've ticked that box that says only when I lack mental capacity. Now, how are you going to evidence that? You're going to get a doctor to say it? Are you going to get an independent mental capacity assessor? So without knowing it, people are making doing these documents on their own. I mean, it's great that people are doing them, don't get me wrong, but I think it's quite easy to make a mistake. That's why I don't accept instruction from members of the public who don't have a professional involved, because I don't want that responsibility on me. I'm not a lawyer, you know.
Me neither. Me neither. I bring the experts in. I do all the
Yeah,
emotional side, yeah, and bring the experts in to do the legal side.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to point two then, obviously care homes. Well, I had to look into care homes when my mum had dementia and was very poorly. And that in itself is a very difficult role, I must admit, to find something that's suitable for your loved one. So how are you able to obviously help people with that?
So I not just care homes, but care in your own home. I can do the
Okay.
both. And I think that's come from, I managed nursing homes for 7 years. So I know what I'm looking for. I don't go around and look at them for people. What I do is I put all the homes through a kind of audit process, and I narrow them down to about three. And then I do a deep dive on those three. And then I go through it with the family and say, look, this is the pros and cons of these top three, if you like. And that applies to care homes or home care providers, that people come into your own home. And I'll go through the pros and cons, and I'll just help them to come to a decision. And essentially, because I've done community care and I've done nursing home care, I kind of know what I'm looking for, and I know, what questions to ask. And I give them my opinion. I kind of say, if this was my mum or my dad, I'd probably start with this one.
Yeah.
And then, but I always say you've got to go and, they know their relative better than I do. So, especially with a nursing home or care home, go and see it. Get a feel for the place, have a look at the staff. Are they happy? Do the residents look stimulated, or are they all sat in a circle asleep around a telly that nobody's watching? It's all of those things. And I've developed some freebies that people can download, some PDFs. I've got one on what to look for when you're looking around a care home. So I can, send them that, and then they go off to look at the care homes. They're informed, they know what they're looking for, they know what to ask the home manager. So it's a kind of like hand-holding process from beginning to end.
So with your care expert witness, this sounds like a very interesting and responsible role that you have there.
You
And
said a responsible role. There is a lot of responsibility that comes with it, because you can essentially end up in court defending your position and being cross-examined, which has happened not that often. I've done it twice now. I've given evidence in court over the 13 years that I have been an expert witness. It's not something you particularly look forward to, I've got to be honest, because that there's going to be a barrister there questioning you, and from the other side, and trying to pick holes in your report. So you do learn very quickly how to write in a way that is very clear and not ambiguous. So essentially, what that role involves is again assessment. Assessment's been part of my, job as a nurse from the beginning. You go and see the person, you assess their needs, how they are now. You look at any care that they've had from family members. You look at their house. Will they need a stair lift? What's their bath like? You're looking at everything. Sometimes, especially during COVID, when we were doing it online, it kind of changed the way we worked a little bit, and I would do Zoom assessments, and the family members would take photos of the house, of the bathroom, of the front door and the back door to see if they needed a handrail, all of those bits, and they'd just send me the photographs. So sometimes I still do Zoom assessments where it's not possible to visit, but visits are good, but it can mean you're kind of driving long distances. I go all over the country actually doing that. Yeah, so I do enjoy it. It's really interesting and challenging. But I do enjoy it, and I enjoy meeting the people. A lot of the cases I do are people that have got, terminal illnesses, if you like, life-limiting illnesses. And, my friends say to me, "Oh God, it sounds so depressing." But I don't find it depressing. Obviously, it's sad. Sometimes it's sad, and some people's situations will affect you more than others. In particular, I remember seeing a woman in her 40s who'd got asbestos-related cancer. It's called mesothelioma, and she was exposed at school because it takes years for this cancer to come out. So she'd been exposed at a school in London, and she recalls the dust coming down from the ceiling tiles. You hear things like that and you just think, oh, and it's heartbreaking. They're there with like 3 kids and they've got this incurable cancer. So some of the cases like that do stay with you for a long time. The majority of people see are men kind of in their 60s, 70s, because they've often done manual jobs when they were younger, they were exposed. Then it takes kind of between 10 and 30 years to come out. So yeah, but people don't want you to turn up like a harbinger of doom, They don't want you to be, oh, how are you? Generally, they're just getting on with living their life, and I end up having a laugh with people, and I come in and just, I gauge the mood, obviously, but often they're not at the end stages when I meet them. They've had a diagnosis, obviously, so they just want to be seen as a person, not somebody who's got this terrible disease. So actually, I really get a lot of job satisfaction from going in and seeing these people, because I meet so many lovely people doing it. So it's not
You're helping.
depressing.
At the end of the day, you're there to help them and try and make things better for them going forward, aren't you? That, at the end of the day, is the role that you're playing there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So who is it that sort of gives you those jobs? Does that come through the solicitors for the people?
Yeah, so different subset of solicitors than the capacity stuff. But yeah, it comes from solicitors. So if somebody's diagnosed with mesothelioma, generally the hospitals now are quite good at the point of diagnosis of referring them onto the local asbestos support team. And that's a charity normally, and they will give that person a list of solicitors who are specialists in that kind of work. And they will choose whichever one they want. Sometimes it's based on who's nearest. And then the solicitors then go and find a medical expert to say, how long is this person going to live, and talk about the exposure. And then they'll also have a care expert, which tends to be someone like myself, a nurse with a background in palliative care. And we comment on what care they're going to need. And then that all goes towards, as evidence towards the claim, which is ultimately seen by a judge who decides how much compensation that person gets, if they, or whether they do indeed, whether it even goes to court, whether there's enough evidence around when they were exposed. And, there's a lot involved in it, which the solicitors deal with. But my little bit is all about the care. And is that person getting the care that they need? And if not, how can we put care in place to make sure that the rest of their life is as comfortable as possible?
Well, I can completely understand why your company is called Brookes Care Solutions, because you've just discussed 3 different solutions that you offer to help people, and it is literally all about caring. Everything you do is about caring for people. at their end of life.
You know, yeah, the majority of the people I see are older.
Yeah.
That's just, yeah. And I have always enjoyed working with older people as well. You know, I could never have been a children's nurse. You know, you do your placements in nursing school, and I just knew that wasn't the area for me. They cry too much. And I
Oh,
found that personally very challenging to work with sick children. But yeah, we've all got our little areas where we feel comfortable, and I've always enjoyed working with older people.
lovely. So, Jodie, if anybody is interested in contacting you after hearing this Pat Chat,
Yeah.
how do they do that?
Okay, so they can go to my website, www.brookscaresolutions.co.uk. Brooks has got an E in it, same as my surname. I am on Facebook, just type in the business name. I'm most active on LinkedIn because obviously that's where most of my target clients are, if you like. That's my professional platform. Yeah, so either of those, Jodie Brookes RN on LinkedIn, and also I've got a company page on LinkedIn as well.
Lovely. That's great. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to have a Pat Chat with me today. I really appreciate it.
No, it was a pleasure.